welcome to the Enola Frost Studio Workshop. Wow, that sounded a little overdramatic, much more than I meant it. But hi, welcome. I'm happy to be here. So is my bird, and I hope you are too. So today I am going to work with this sort of semi-composed pull that I made when I was trying to do something altogether different. But there's something about it that I like, so I want to keep it somehow. And if you're one of those people that makes a ton of gel prints, like me, and then you're wondering, what am I supposed to do with all of these? Let me tell you, that is really why I began art journaling, because I needed something to slow me down a little bit from doing all of the pulls and never doing anything else with them. So I'm going to make a layout for my art journal today. Again, I used the Canson XL Mixed Media Rough that I get at Michael's, but I don't like to work in the spiral bound very much because I tend to make a mess of it. So I've pulled out one of the pages, and what I do at the end is I trim it down and I mount it inside the art journal. So it still ends up being a part of the journal. So this is the pull that I'm working with, and I'm going to be using Dina Wakley Media Scribble Sticks. So this is her lemon and this is her cheddar. And the reason for that is the little bits of kind of fluorescent orange that are in the background. So that's where I'm going to start today. And I'm going to try this thing. Some people are better at scribbling than others, and I don't feel like a good scribbler. Wow, that is some serious self-image problems if I'm worried about how good my scribbling is. I'm going to do a little extra there because I know when the yellow and the orange come together, it will lighten things up and brighten things up. Okay, I'm going to take this off. Someday you're going to see it come back in to a layout, because there's something irresistible to me about this. Although as a teacher, I have a hate relationship with them. I call them diablillos, like little devils, when they're on notebook paper, because it drives me crazy when students don't tear them off of the papers that they're turning in. I know, I'm very high maintenance. Okay, the reason I started with the scribble sticks is because I love how they change when you put matte medium on them. So I use Nova Color matte medium from a nice big container that I have transferred into a smaller old Liquitex container that I finished a while back. The scribble sticks are a water soluble medium, which is why they're doing this fun smeariness. And just for the sake of showing you, I've covered most of this with the matte medium, but I'll show you in this little section. You can really get it to move if you add water. Now, I wasn't going to do water on the whole background, but I thought for sake of demonstration, it wasn't going to hurt how I was going to be using it. Now look, I'm actually moving some of the water into the areas that I already covered with matte medium, and it continues reacting. So that's something that is, I think, really fun about the scribble sticks. Actually, now that I'm doing it, I want to get a little more movement up in that corner. But this is all just going to be a background for my art journal page. So give me a moment to dry it. Okay, my water activated surface is ready, and I would like a little more orange on it. I know I'll be cutting off edges, so I'm not making a great effort to get all the way down to the edge. Okay, and I'm going to leave that unactivated so it has a slightly different look. looking at the size of this, it looks like I can get the bulk of the birds on here. But if I just trim it and put the birds on, you're not going to see anything in the background. And so the part of this I think that is most compelling to me is right here, because I think it's funny that there's this hawk shape that looks very sinister, and this is a mask that I made from a picture of my daughter's cockatoo, who is anything but sinister, and they're facing each other. So that's what I like about it. So I think that's the part I'm going to focus on. I'm going to tear, sorry, goodbye to my owl. I love barred owls. And then I'm tearing close to that one. I think I'm going to remove a lot of the red here and tear up to the cockatiel, and this is partly so that we can see the page behind it. Okay, so this will probably, it'll be centered, or do I want it? I might put it down in that corner, and then I can do more up here at the top. So I'm going to continue to tear around the birds. This is quite the amalgam of different types of birds. There are crows stamped in the background, and then there's the hawk and the cockatiel. So we have corvids, raptors, and parrots, all on the same print. Okay, so I think I'm going to put that approximately there. But I'm not going to glue it down yet, because there's a lot of space left in the background that needs some attention. All right, I have some thoughts, but one of the things that I absolutely need to do is tape down the sheet I'm working on. This is a very old card making tape that, as far as I know, it was just known as purple tape. It was so good, and then the manufacturer stopped making it. I don't need it taped down on all sides, but I did need a little help holding it in place. Now, this is a little bit of a make or break decision, because I'm going to go in with some paint in the background. Straight painting is not my forte, but I know that red and green are complementary colors, and that's where I'm going. I'm going red and green, which seems very Christmassy, and even though Christmas just finished, it's not exactly what I'm going for, which is why I've chosen the light olive green, and I'm going to hopefully use that as a dominant color in the background there. And I can already see more black showing up in the background as well to complement the dark stenciled hawk. Okay. I use my little 3-inch gel plate as a palette oftentimes, and I'm going to mix a little bit of the color here so I get something new. I get very bored of the same colors as they come out of the tubes, but I'm lazy to mix them. Okay. tell I'm using a really fancy fine artist brush right there. Now I know my focal point is going to be here. I just want to put some color down. I've been thinking I maybe would have put another paper down so I wasn't painting on my plate or on my glass mat, but oh well. Okay, there's a little bit of my straight, what is it, light green permanent. Doesn't seem that different. And now more of the light olive. Since I have so many swirly scribbles in the background, I am keeping these brush strokes very horizontal and vertical. I guess I don't mind if there's some white in the background. It's actually very creamy colored. And something that I've seen others do is spray a little bit of water on top of their sort of damp paint and then use paper towel to pull it up in areas to add more interest to the background. Now, I was thinking droplets, but I got the background in the pattern of my paper towel. And that's okay because it doesn't have a big beef or bounty or something on it. You can't tell. All right, so now I'm going to let this one dry. So here I am with my background. Look at me, just a little more orange. It's really not staying very prominent, which maybe is a sign that I am just not receiving. Okay, so a background that definitely makes the red pop with the green. So far though, this is ugly. I think I need to collage on the background, so that's where I'm headed next. Went into my file of deli papers, well, jelly prints in general, and picked out some things that are really not spectacular at all on their own. This is a worksheet that has a little bit of green, not yellow green on it. This is quite ugly, but it's got that fluorescent orange in it. And when I had this other print that was the greens and teal, there's also teal on this, I thought, you know what? I actually like red and green and teal together as well. So I'm going to use that to help me out in the back. And I'm not sure if this is going in anywhere. It's pretty hideous on its own, but it has these thick black marks that were from a Sharpie Magnum marker that I might want in my background. So we'll see if it gets in here. My bird sometimes gets a hold of little pieces of print and chews on them. Like, do I leave that in? And it seems appropriate, right? And we have another representative of the parrot species because he is a tiny little lovebird. There you go. So now we have yet another parrot represented. sort of auditioning, I guess. That may be more black than I want, but there is some transparency to this because it's on deli paper. I wonder if I just use a portion of it. I kind of like the idea of the circle kind of having a corona effect back there. And if I just take part of it, that's getting closer. It's getting closer to what was in my mind. I'm trying to preserve the big swoop of that circle, but remove some of the bulk. When I pulled that out, I did not imagine that it would improve the color scheme the way I feel like it is. Okay, and now I have my quite transparent prints here. I think I'm just going to take some strips of them, strips and blocks, and position them around the composition. I tend to either tear all of my pieces on a collage or cut all of my pieces. I like both, but I seldom combine both kinds of edges together. Once this is adhered with the matte medium, the hazy white part will go quite transparent, and I'm glad because there's a lot of ugly to this print. I'm going to do a ring. I'm going to tear out like a donut shape. Again, keep a little of the idea of that arc back there. I think I'm going to put these underneath that. Flip this piece so the teal is down and shorten this one up considerably. That might help keep the eye traveling around a little bit if there's more of the bright orange down here. Okay, since I'm just trying to ground the focal images, I think I'm going to glue these down. I just love how that disappears right into the mixed media paper. Trying to make sure I have a lot of matte medium underneath, that I smooth it with the Catalyst wedge before I add additional matte medium, because sometimes I don't do that very thoughtfully and then I end up tearing that thin paper. But that is fine. Need to add a little more matte medium because this is copy paper and it takes a little more to hold it down, but it also stands up better to having the matte medium on both sides. But do you see what happens to your matte medium? It picks up all of that water-soluble stuff under, and so why not deposit it back down and get other little interesting bits of color? Probably can't see that I'm cutting through a line of matte medium there. All right, then to add this large circular piece. It was going to be a donut, but then when I decided to place it under the hawk, it didn't need to be a donut because a significant amount of it will be covered up. Oh, I can see through it. See what I said? It goes transparent here, and that definitely improves the look of that particular print. Okay, now I'm going to put my large, loud piece of jelly printed deli paper that has the big black marker. Should have all my edges down. Thank you, Catalyst Wedge. And then cover everything with matte medium so that it is sealed down. Okay, there was one more piece that I had going vertically, and I'm wondering if I want to take it up the middle to really call attention. I think I do. Oh yes, this was the one that my little lovebird has chewed on, so his artwork is represented here as well. And then because I have this extra little piece, I think I'm going to add the same piece as I had there. Okay, so we can see the black and the green comes up, helping show that that is a focal point. And I think I'm satisfied with that as my composition. Let the birds get their forever home. Cricket is the name of my little lovebird, is expressing his support, I guess. All right, there is quite a heavy coating of matte medium on this now, and so I'm going to let it dry before I put on my finishing touches. All right, it's getting to the point where I can continue working. As I was sort of studying everything, it was crystal clear to me, I don't know if you're saying it in your head too, add some more white back in. It looks weird just having that white in the middle. And so I went back to the original print that I pulled that had that white over the red, and then it also has little tiny glimpses of the fluorescent orange and black. And I'm going to use it to help me with my composition and kind of the color balance, perhaps more even than the composition. There, and then I'm going to give my little birds something to stand on down here so it doesn't look like they're floating. Flying would be one thing, but floating is not what they do. And then because 2 is an even number, we have to fix that. We have to put a third one on. All right. And then my final addition is going to be some marks that I made with a small brush and some golden fluid acrylics. Just they're black. Sometimes I use India ink, which I like as well. But something that's kind of fun about the fluid acrylics is they're very shiny. They keep a nice gloss to them when they're dry. And because it's on the deli paper, it sort of fades everything except for the black marks. Oh, I like that. Okay, and then I grabbed a piece that had 2 different sizes of dots. A little variation, but also continuity because they're still just dots. And once again, they're in 2 places, and I just can't have that. This may not even end up on the final. I'm going to put it in a ways. I would normally put it right on the edge, but because I'll trim the edges off before I mount it, I think I'll give myself a little space there. Okay, now I have the 3 places, and it helps my eye go around and connect with the black hawk. All right, the last step I'll show you is my trimming and mounting in the journal. I'm going to use my Tim Holtz Tonic guillotine trimmer, and I don't want this trimmed off. I want just that little bit to stay there. And so I'm going to be taking, in my mind, this is about 3/8 of an inch off. Actually, we might just do a 1/2 inch because then I don't have to count the lines as much. So I want a 1/2 inch off the top and the bottom, and then almost an inch off on the one side. So that's around that line. A close approximation. And the reason I did that is because I want it to be somewhat proportional when I mount it on the art journal page. That is what it's going to look like. So thank you for joining me here on my art journal called All the Birds in the World. No, it doesn't have a title unless you want to suggest one, and I'll write it down here and date it. But there we have it. Thanks so much. Come back anytime to the studio workshop.